Greetings and salutations. This is Abdelhadi with The Bitter Truth, where we may not have all the answers, but we're going to have a hell of a lot of questions. You can also visit the new website, the bitter pill. You can be a bitter pill, but it's thebittertruth.info. And I finally grew up a little bit after a couple of years of doing this. I broke down and got myself a website, and you can visit it and get some fabulous swag to make your life better. Today, friend of the show, award-winning comedian, acclaimed author of Laughter is Better Than Communism and Frank Got Abducted. He's also the host of Alienating the Audience and the Political Orphanage podcasts. Mr. Heaton, how are you, man?
I'm back. Abe, thank you for having me. It's good to see you. Thank you for inviting me back.
So,
and we didn't manage to fix everything since my last appearance. I sort of thought that was going to be, like politics would kind of wrap up.
Yeah.
We more or less got everything knocked out, but it's still a go.
Well, that's I never did cocaine. I've done everything else, but I never did cocaine. But the joke was that Dennis Leary joke was you're in the bathroom with the guy till 3 a.m. solving all the world's problems when you really just want the blow. That should have been a clue, So, and surprisingly, the world's problems never got solved in the bathroom. So
yeah, well, and for the record, I only came on your podcast because I assumed I would be paid in cocaine.
Right.
But I wound up having a good time, so I'm back.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, they this is Texas. The dogs got it, and so that's what happened. So, I'll get you a T-shirt. I'll send you a T-shirt.
don't I keep reading these stories about how you guys are being overrun by boars. Is this something you all are concerned about? Apparently there's super pigs that have got loose and bred with boars, and there's no natural predators, so you can just randomly shoot boars from helicopters with machine guns as long as you. Yeah.
Well, it's not like. I'm not sure exactly. I got a friend that has done that, but there's guys that actually have property.
Yeah, and you pay them and they take you out.
50 acres, and then you can either rent a copter, they have to take you up, and you can. But you're doing them. You're paying them to do them a favor because you're actually
right. Yeah.
But they're not it's not like the streets of Austin or.
I don't think I could do that. I get it because you've got to do because they're invasive species, but I feel it's unsportsmanlike. I think if you're going to kill an animal, you have to give it a fighting chance that it kills you.
See, I think hunting. Okay, I got to think about hunting, man. If you're going to eat it, I'm cool. I got a buddy that shoots that elk, right. and he's got a deep freezer. And he barbecues it, and it's pretty amazing,
which will
right?
Last you like 6 months. So he's probably getting a lot of meat out of that too.
Yeah, he gives it to his friends, and he a lot. But these assholes that do the whole trophy hunting thing, with the rhinos and stuff like that. It's they don't even know. They don't even know they're being shot at, right? Because if they did, they charge your ass at 1,000,000 miles an hour and being a tree. I just think it's douchey. I just think it's just douchey. Those people. Every time I see those trophy people holding the cheetah, or the giraffe's head or something, they remind me of the '80s James Spader. They're just they're that dickhead. I think I'm older than you. I'm dating myself, but James Spader in the '80s was the ultimate teen villain. Right?
Oh,
he had the feathered hair and the popped collar and the Ray-Bans that his daddy bought him his Ferrari, but he's a senior in high school and, he's picking on Molly Ringwald and, but he's the class student body president guy. He's just a total asshole. That's who that's what I see those people to be. That's just my hang.
Yeah, I get that. I have very similar thoughts where I don't hunt, but I really don't fault anybody for doing it if they're eating the prey. Yeah. Because I feel like I'm probably gonna eat a hamburger later today, and honestly that cow had a way worse death. Yeah. So but I think but also if you're eating it, I feel like you're it's vaguely respectful. You're killing something, but it's giving you nourishment. Well, as opposed to you're just shooting it for kicks. I'm like,
that's what that trophy shit is to me. It's like you're Charles Manson. You're just shooting it for kicks. You're killing everybody in the house because they're home, right? And then that's supposed to somehow get you laid because you go to the person's house and you're supposed to be all excited now and get if you're a chick, you're supposed to be getting all wet because you see this big cheetah head over a fireplace. And I don't know if anyone's ever been asked, well, did you eat that? Did you eat the rhino?
For the record, I would 100% eat it because I've already eaten a lot of weird creatures, and if there is anything that whole you get their power, I want it. So if I hit a cheetah with my car, I would totally figure out a way to eat that. I'd have a barbecue and then respectfully consume the cheetah. If
you hit the cheetah with the car, you should get a patent because that meant you caught a cheetah with your car.
That means I've got either a really good car or a really dumb cheetah.
Yeah,
I don't know the stats. I gotta say, it seems unlikely to do on my way from Los Angeles to Oklahoma, but if it happened, I nonetheless would.
Yeah, you're getting the fuck out of Dodge, man. What's going on?
I am okay. So you and I met right when I moved out to LA. Remember how not haggard I was back then, and how bright-eyed I was.
Story of everybody's life.
Yeah, it's true. I moved there in January with the idea of doing. I'm in comedy, and I was like, LA makes sense. I'll do networking and all of that kind of thing. Not knowing that networking would not at all be possible in any way, shape, or form in Los Angeles. So I've been out here a few months, and it's like there's no I don't like deserts. I don't like being hot. I don't like deserts. I think beaches are stupid. I think beaches are just deserts with a hole at the end. Like, I don't see the appeal at all. Yeah. It's like people, you know what I really want to do? I really want to get hot and tired and sweaty next to a hole. Congratulations. I don't want to do that.
That's hilarious.
To me, there is nothing innately appealing about Los Angeles. I love Edinburgh, Scotland. I used to live there. That's my favorite place in the world. This is the exact opposite of that. It's a giant parking lot that somehow doesn't have any parking in it. That's too hot and relentlessly sunny. And if there's no reason for me to be here career-wise, and at present there's not, then I don't really want to keep paying the highest rent of my life. So I'm going to move back to the middle of the country. I might even be down in your neck of the woods because Austin's hot. It's a great place to winter. And it's a cool city. Yeah. Oh no, I would love to go smoke a cigar and have a drink on your porch. That sounds fun.
Dude, man. That's the thing too. Is and Flappers closed, didn't they?
I don't know. It might have. I only performed comedy here twice before maybe COVID. 3 times before lockdown happened.
Because Cap City out here closed.
Oh yeah,
which broke my heart.
Really?
Yeah,
doubly sad because Rogan was already planning on moving out, and he would have
he's here.
I think he will have a very positive effect on the Austin comedy scene because there's going to be all these people that really just want to swing through Austin now, in the off chance that they get to play on the same stage as Rogan and meet him.
Well, I hope so.
He'll be beneficial, but it's not going to work as well if the clubs are shutting down.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, and that's the other part too. Is when can you go back? That's Dallas is kind of full blown open, right? But Austin,
I think singing, dancing, and comedy clubs which 3 things I love. Are probably going to be the last things to open.
Yeah, I play in a band, and we've been spending the last 6-7 months just getting dressed with nowhere to go, and we go to practice. We go to practice every Saturday, and just got a new bass player, and we're going every Saturday, one day we're gonna be able to play out again. But no, man. So, shit. So, how's the climate? How do you feel the climate's been changing? You run a couple of shows, and
you're not talking about the fact that California's on fire. You're talking about it metaphorically.
Yeah, we all know California's on fire, man. And since 2012, there's not been one single month that there hasn't been fire in California.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
We used to have fire season out there when I was a kid. And I left there 5.5 years ago. Mm-hmm. And now the last 3 or 4 years, it's not even fire season. It's there's maybe 2 months where it's not all over the state, but there's almost always a fire.
Just smoky or not smoky. Those are your options. Okay.
Yeah. It's today's a mild smoky. It's just, but yeah, the whole, it's, there's so many things that, I don't know, man. That's what I was asking. What you about to ask? What you thought? With the
climate and the election as a whole. It's harder for me to judge it because I think right now, myself and virtually everybody else, the only info I have is either people I already know, and so there's going to be a built-in bias where I'm probably going to associate, for the most part, with people that largely share my worldview. I don't intentionally do that, but I'm just assuming we all kind of gravitate towards shared opinions. Sure. So on the one hand, I've got that, and then the other thing is social media, which I think is a horrible way to try and judge the actual timbre of the country, because social media inherently favors really snarky, really angry, hateful stuff. It does better. It's quantifiably. There've been academic studies on this that Twitter, if you say something angry and meant to elicit, yay team, boo team anger, that's just going to travel farther, faster, be repeated more, right? So I don't think Twitter's a very good way to get a pulse on it. Here's my read on it. I do think that I still believe in the concept of the exhausted majority. I think that the actual makeup of the country is about 15% of the population is far right wing. Yay, I've got a MAGA hat and a pitchfork. About 15% of the population is super woke and wants to put on ISIS pajamas and break windows. And about 70% of the population is Republican, Democrat, or independent, but could conceivably have a conversation with someone that they disagree with and be fine. Right. And for those of us that are a part of that broader spectrum, whether we're moderates, libertarians, centrist, independents, we're just kind of calmer Republicans and Democrats, we're all kind of baffled. And I have noticed that there's a lot of people like that. I have met a few people in California that will they'll lean forward when they talk to me and go, listen, I'm not a Trump person. I'm not a conservative. But I think we're going a bit far on the woke stuff, and they're afraid to say it out loud.
Right.
And I'm like, what I find funny is I'm like, you're in California, like you're in your home territory. Like this is LA. This is your city.
Right.
Like I'm the ideological visitor here. I'm the one that has to shut the fuck up.
Right.
But I'm like, when they're doing it. So I think that the bits are overstated. Here's what I'm worried about, Abe, is I don't want to say a non-peaceful resolution, because I don't think we're going to have a civil war, but I don't see a non-contested outcome to the upcoming election, and that's not going to be fun at all. I think that it's going to be a close vote, regardless of who it goes. I think it's going to be similar, if not worse, to the 2000 election, where we don't really know. I mean, the kind of the projection that, say, 538 and a lot of other thinky groups have looked at is normally the mail-in ballots are kind of an afterthought. They're usually not sufficiently large in number to actually turn the election. Mm-hmm. And so you can usually declare a swing state before all of the mail has been counted, because you know that mathematically it couldn't overturn the decision.
Right.
Great. But this time around with COVID, very good chance that there'll be far more mail-in ballots. And at the same time, those mail-in ballots are likely going to get in late. Or they're not going to be counted as quickly for a variety of reasons. So there's a good chance that come election night, Trump will appear to win in a landslide and will no doubt declare victory. Biden, understandably, will say, hold on, we're not conceding this election because we think that we are actually going to win. These mail-in ballots are going to push us over the edge. And then at that point, once that's happened, either side is now going to think we got robbed. Whenever the decision's finally made, the Trump people are going to think that an illegitimate regime stole it. The Biden people are going to think that an illegitimate regime, suppressed the election and threw out the mail-in ballots and all these different things. So it's not going to be pleasant. And my guess is just kind of mass protests and riots in all the urban areas across the country is sort of what I'm predicting.
I from the bottom of my little black heart, I hope so.
Really?
Yeah.
You're rooting for that?
Yeah, I don't want to. I'm 57 years old. I'm not going to get out there. My days are past that shit. But I don't blame people if they do. I mean, the country needs an enema, man. And
I'll say yes on the protest, no on the riots. in 2016.
Well, I don't want it to be violent, but I want like when when they're just marching, I don't give a shit. And block the traffic and whatever. But what's going to happen? But it turns into riots when cops show up to play. Mm-hmm. With their full battle shit, and they start blasting people with rubber bullets, which, by the way, you're supposed to bounce them off the ground. But
really? Is it meant to just be like a bang? And we know there's projectiles. It's meant to be psychological. It's not meant to hit you.
Yeah. Well, if it hits you, it's supposed to the bounce off the ground.
It takes the edge off it.
Takes the edge off. Right. You're not supposed to shoot a guy directly in the face with a rubber bullet. It's
right, because that could still kill you, right? Like if it went into your eye, it would just zip around your skull until your brains were mushed.
There's a shot of this guy in a wheelchair, homeless guy in a wheelchair. His pants are half down. He had a sign, and some cop shot him in the face with a rubber bullet. And he's leaning over, and blood's dripping out of his face. He lost his eye. And I'm going, even the Israelis in the 80s handled it better. They used to, at least when they're shooting the kids with the rocks, they at least bounced it off the ground like you're supposed to. And and then it would hit the kid, right? It did not hurt. They don't not hurt.
Right. They're going to be more than a paintball.
Yeah,
but all the same. Yeah.
But the idea is it's not. You're not supposed to be penetrating.
Well, I'm with you. I think that America definitely needs a big old catharsis. I mean, my ideal would be if somehow they could paradrop vaccines and condoms throughout the country. It'd just be like, we're good. Go have fun. I would be like, I'm making a beeline to New Orleans tomorrow, and I'm going to make out with anybody that goes to the diner. That would be, I would prefer to go the Bonobo Simeon route if we'd all just have an orgy to get it out of our system.
Yeah.
That said, I realize it's not too likely, and we're all fat from COVID. So absent that option, a big old peaceful, nonviolent, non-destructive catharsis protest would be great. I think that would be fine. And I have no problem with that. 2016, I was just talking to one of my friends about this. I was working at News Corp the night of the election. And so I was on the Fox business floor when the election results were coming in. And I was not at all expecting or rooting for Trump. So I was in a very odd emotional state, excused myself to go to a bar, sucked down 2 pints, came back to finish up the evening. And I could hear people at the bottom that were outside watching Lou Dobbs just chanting lock her up," which I did not think was in good taste. I thought that was a tad Orwellian. Yeah. But that said, though, when I exited the building, I didn't feel unsafe. I didn't feel like my life was under threat. Walking out of a literal Fox building the night of a Trump victory. And as I got onto a cab, people were yelling at each other. But that's fine. We have a right to make each other uncomfortable. Like you can make, you don't have a right to not be uncomfortable in this country. But this time around, I'm like, well, I don't know if I'd want to be at a city center.
I mean, it was hairy down here in Austin, I mean, but by day 3, it started getting, the cops were like, getting a little unhinged, and I mean, there's this one shot of some cop on the 35 on the bridge at 6th Street of the 35 freeway, and he's woman's 30 feet down, and he shoots a pregnant woman in the stomach.
Oh God!
Like with a rubber bullet, and what threat did she pose to you? You're on a bridge. What was she holding that made you? You know what I mean? Just crap like that. But then to your point a second ago, you brought up this woke shit. You said something on the last time when you came on, and we talked about hate porn. And I swear to God, it's Orwell's 2 minutes of hate with these people.
Yeah.
Because their eyes glaze over. It's like talking politics online or any sort of modicum of real history is like plagiarizing a comic book. It's just there's just no nuance, and fuck nuance. Joe Biden wrote the crime bill. Okay.
Yeah.
We're
undoing his work. He also voted for DOMA, the Defense of Marriage Act, and voted for the word Iraq. He's a policy trade wreck.
100%. And so here's the guy who made all these problems, but he's going to fix our problems. But then people look at you. Well, I don't care. I just hate Trump. Okay, but the things that you don't like, Biden helped create over a 45-year career.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear that because they just hate the mean tweets.
Right.
And
people are fighting memes. Yeah. This is one of the things that like I enjoy talking to people like you, Abe, that know what they're talking about and can engage in it. When I start talking to people like, oh, I'm going to sound like an asshole here because I've been doing this for a living for so long. Like I worked at News Corp. I worked for Reason. Like I used to work for the House of Representatives. Like I've either been in politics or in media covering politics for my adult life, right? And so I've been in it a while, and I'm a think tank fellow and all this, so I know what I'm talking. I might be wrong, but I at least know the terminology that I'm using to express being wrong. I at least like any smart person would be like, all right, that guy's wrong, but at least he has these bits. When I engage with people that don't have any grip of the situation, and what I find that they're doing is they're saying, I'm angry about this. I want you to validate my feelings and share my feelings, and I'm like, look, I'm actually quite keen on, I'm very Buddhist about this. Like, I think equanimity is a good thing. So I want to be empathetic and sympathetic, but I do not think it's a good thing to roil my own internal emotions. I want to respond to things, not to react to things. I want to be in emotional control of myself because I view that as a sign of adulthood. And so when someone engages me and they're like, they're freaking out about something, like the only thing I've kind of been able to do recently is be like, oh, that sounds really terrible. Like, I'm kind of a math guy. Can you give me some figures to help me wrap my mind around that?
No.
Like what, and then it just kind of dissipates because it's like, oh, well, like, I'm not really sure. And I'm like, okay, well, if you find anything out, let me know because I would love to find out about that. Because what I want to do is I want to fucking wrench that person out of their emotional state and pull them into a rational state.
Yeah.
And be like, let's just deal with like falsifiable stuff.
Right.
Deal with data on that. Like, and the crime bill is a great example of that. Like that's a concrete thing we can point to.
Sure.
Like that's something that he did. It's not a, well, he makes me feel such and such, or it's a rhetorical thing.
Right.
Where, he says mean things. Like, I also think Trump is an asshole. I'm not rooting for Trump, but honestly, his tweets are of lesser concern to me than like, whether we're going to go to war with somebody or not.
Well, we got ships in the South China Sea right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And we're saber rattling China because they're pulling out a gazillion cubic meters of natural gas and barrels of oil every day. And they have for the last couple of years without having to invade another country or enslave anybody for 15 cents a day, no bathroom breaks. I mean, it's just in their backyard.
Oh, I didn't know this. Is it like international waters and we're claiming it, or what is it?
No, we're saying that the South China Sea to China is like the Gulf of Mexico to us. Right. And we sent in the last like 3 months, like battleships and destroyers to sort of patrol the waters just at the edge of what's their border. So we're still technically in it. But why are we fucking about with China but why are we even doing that? Because they've got natural gas and they got oil. And anytime someone's got resources, they also need some democracy. Heaton, if you got oil, you need some democracy down there, and we do that big red dog shit all the time. And that's what pisses me off when these people will focus on that shit and not actually take into consideration. I mean, I was at this bar a couple weeks back that I go to, a little watering hole by my house, right? Same usual band of malcontents. It's like it's like a poor man's Cheers. Okay. So there's like, there's only a couple of guys.
I got to say, that's one of the great things about Austin. Yeah. Austin has a lot of locations like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the neighborhood guys, y'all know each other, right? And some of these guys became some of my good friends. But this was during the DNC fracas, the convention.
Yeah.
Our Zoom thing.
The glorious Zoom convention of 2020.
Yeah. And then, so, my one friend popped off with this comment, because Obama, I guess, spoke the night before. And, oh, it's so refreshing to watch an accomplished black man, actually speak. And I said, accomplished what? Gettison is taking 2 wars and turning them into 7, kicking 5.1 million people out of their homes. Accomplished what? Bombing the shit out of black and brown people, taking their resources, which taking Libya and turning it into a slave state. I don't care if you like the government or not. It's none of our business. Right. And he was providing healthcare and education for everybody. And the Yemenis that were escaping, he was giving them jobs.
I think that's a significant part of this, is that I think that most people are looking for a spirit animal. They're looking for like how do I live in a Game of Thrones universe, and I'm on House Lannister, and I do not think that the throne is legitimate unless House Lannister is occupying the throne. And this kind of the King of England must be Catholic kind of mentality of just the world does not work unless my spiritual group is in control. It's I think a horrible way of thinking. I think it's one of the downsides of having an imperial presidency, where we've gone from originally the president was meant to preside. That's where the term comes from. The president was basically the chairman of the board. Mm-hmm. Congress was meant to be the preeminent branch of government, and the president was meant to execute the will of Congress, hence the executive branch, and lead the army. And the presidency has just engorged and continues to engorge with each and every president that occupies the White House. It's become this combination of leader of the armed forces, leader of the nation, father of the nation, prophet, seer, chaplain, all these different things, so that you're not just electing the person who appoints judges and commands the army, you're electing the soul of the United States. And I don't think we should have one. I think that we should all kind of have our own interpretation. I this is going to sound so weird. I don't even like using the term American dream, because I think one of the really cool things about America is you get to figure out what the fuck you want to do.
Right.
If your thing is, I just want to be really wealthy, and I'm the son of an immigrant, I'm going to be an investment banker. Cool, man. Good to you. Conversely, you know what? I want to work 2 days a week and live in a commune. Hell yeah. That's great. You do whatever, you do whatever you want to do. So I like that kind of that unifying, we all have to be on board for this thing, and we're all going to spiritually resonate with it. I think is a bad call.
Well, I wrote a paper for Texas Free Press about 4 or 5 months ago called "Your Spirit Animal Sucks."
Yeah.
And I get into all of that. And in one paragraph, and people got pissed. Some of the people got pissed when they read it, when I not compared, but I used Obama and Hitler in the same reference. And people immediately got why'd you have to go there? Well, because Hitler wasn't Hitler, right? Goebbels invented that whole, solitude monk vegan thing.
Oh, really? Wait, what?
Yeah, I've read a couple of books on the Third Reich, and Goebbels.
For the record, he's still a bad guy, right?
Oh, yeah. He killed Jews. Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure. But that said, though, the sort of all of the weird personality traits that we understand, that's a Goebbels invention?
That's a Goebbels invention. He wanted to create this celibate monk image to the people. He's so dedicated, like Tyler Durden. He sleeps an hour a night. He's so focused on the Reich.
Right.
When in reality, he liked bratwursts. He liked beer. And
really?
he had a chick pretty much in every town in Germany that was paid for by the party. He had 20 mistresses set up in different apartments. Uh-huh. So when I feel like going to Munich, I can go to Munich, and it's very nice. And Greta, she gives a mean head job. And he would have a brat in one hand and an ale in the other, and scream whatever. But yeah, that was a Goebbels invention. Conversely, Obama's campaign, won a Ad Age Award in 2009 for Best Marketer of the Year, beating out Zappos and Coors and Nike and Apple. So mm-hmm. It's like, so what's the difference? It's like you create a spirit animal. Bernie mm-hmm. Sanders is my latest favorite punching bag on that front. It's because he did it again, right? And I said this.
I feel like he's an archetype too. There's the archetype that both him and Ron Paul occupy is the aging truth teller. And people I get it, because I was in the Ron Paul camp, so I get it. But there is the spirit animal, kind of thing that comes up. Yeah.
Yeah. But the one thing I'll say for Dr. Paul though, and I don't agree with probably only 30% of his stuff. So I agree with 70% of his stuff, which is more than I can say for pretty much anybody. But he didn't sell out and tell you to vote for threw in his lot with McCain.
That's true.
He didn't come out and champion McCain. He's like, no, those wars are bullshit, man. We shouldn't be doing that. Like he still held his ground and was still vilified by the right because he held his ground. Whereas Bernie wants to be invited to dinner, and so all that shit he said before, my good friend Joe Biden, he's a full 100. He's diametrically opposed to you philosophically. How is he my good friend Joe Biden? How is he your good friend? Any more than Mitch McConnell is your good friend. And then in 2016 when he pulled that shit, and I kind of knew who he was before, but I decided, he was saying the right things to me, and let's just see what he does. And then he sold everybody out. And then last summer I was getting lunch with a friend of mine, and I was raving about him. She goes, it just doesn't, there's, again, spirit animal bullshit, right? It just doesn't seem like you've gotten over the Bernie thing. You have a lot of anger. You just need to let that go. I go, oh, really? So your husband got caught with a stripper in bed. You're going to just let that go? That's how I feel. It's like,
I got to say, this is such a weird part about American politics in that war and peace is maybe like the fifth most important thing to the electorate.
100%.
And in that bizarre, because like you look at this current election, the foreign policy choices are between basically a range of stay where we are and saber rattle and maybe defund NATO to, on the other side, muscular liberalism a la Obama, if not more. Because Biden has a longer track record than Obama in terms of that, right? So so basically the range is maintain the empire or expand the empire. Those are your options.
Right.
And it's weird to me that like there's not the fact that like the Green Party, the Libertarian Party, I don't know about the other third parties like the Constitution Party, but the Green Party, the Libertarian Party are the only actual anti-war parties, and consistently so, and are like jokes to most of the public. And I'm like, it's sad that the only party that's like consistently, we are against war, we are for peace, that people are like, well, that's bullshit. That's certainly, we just can't have that as an option. Like we at the end of the day, we need to vote for one of these two, like spirit animals / economic regimes. If Bernie Sanders had led with I'm a social democrat, like I'm going to do all these things that Andrew Heaton, I'm going to disagree with, but I am emphatically opposed to war, and I'm also going to end the drug war. I would have been like, all right, I'll take that.
I'll vote for you. That's right.
Yeah, I'll probably undo all of your nonsense for the next 20 years domestically, but I would take that deal though to get out of the wars.
Well,
and it's just not an option.
But you're one of those people though that understands war, and not like you're a veteran. I mean, but you understand the economic damage in this country, and then you understand why it's why we can't have nice things, and it's why people don't like us overseas. Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, the Chinese, I'm not a big fan of the Roads and Belts initiative that they're doing because it's like another 1,000 coal plants that they're firing up in China to pay.
What's the Roads and Belts initiative?
I said it wrong. The Belts and Roads initiative. So what China's been doing for the last 5, 7 years, 6 years, instead of like going into third world countries and blackmailing leaders to buy shit at a high interest rate and then CIA their ass, a la Salvador Allende if they don't pay up, or you're not giving us your resources, you're nationalizing them, are you? Oh, well, you have to die. So instead of doing that, they've been going to these countries and going, hey, listen, we'll help you develop your infrastructure a little bit, and you guys keep your natural resources, you nationalize them. That way we're not, having to loan you money, and we'll buy the stuff off you, and you can sell it to Iran, you can sell it to India, and then, we'll give you like a 1% zero interest loan to help pay for this crap, and as a result, they still only have 2 bases outside of China, right?
Really? Because we've got like 137, I think.
No, we got 1,200.
Oh, do we? Okay, yeah, I was about to say we have a lot.
Yeah, we have Iran alone is surrounded by 40, and so people wonder why they're a little itchy.
Well, that and we also threw out one of their regimes. Like imagine if in the year 2000, Iran had sponsored somehow sponsored like a Masada takeover, ousted Bush and put in Gore. We would remember that. We would remember that we lost our sovereignty.
See, and this thing, people forget that shit, right? And I remember when I was in high school and the Iran thing happened. My old man my dad's Palestinian. So my old man was the one who explained to me because he goes, stuff on the news is bullshit. And I, what do you mean? They're crazy. No, not crazy. A little pissed off. And he starts explaining to me about Mohammed Mossadegh. I'm 15. And I'm thinking, you're cracked. I get to college, take a couple of poli-sci classes, start reading the LA Reader instead of the LA Times. I'm like, oh shit, the old man was right. How about that? And that's exactly, what the American exceptionalism provides, that short-sightedness. It provides that amnesia. Yeah. Because I'm in Chewy Blue Austin, and you start talking about war and eyes glaze over. And especially if it's involved with Obama.
It's so weird. Like I had a conversation here, right when I moved to New York, like years ago. I was just starting to perform comedy at the Broadway Comedy Club, and at that time there was also the World Comedy Club, and I would do shows there a couple times a week. And I was hanging out with some of the other comics, and was having this convivial conversation with a young lady, and she was talking about like how horrible Rwanda had been, and that we should have gone in. And I was like, well, can you like tell me, like, when you say go in, like multilaterally, unilaterally? And she's like, well, we should have just gone in, and like kind of. And I was like, but like, couldn't you make that case about Iraq, that like Saddam was doing bad stuff and we went in and threw that guy out? And she was like, well, no, but if Clinton had did it, his heart was in the right place. Like he's a good person.
Oh my God. Yeah. Shoot my fucking face.
And I was just like, really? Like at the end of the day, like you're fine with it as long as like as long as they're a good person, we assume their motivations are pure. Like if they're Republican, it's probably for oil money. But if they're Democrats, they've got a good reason. And I'm like that to me, I'm just like, nope, sorry. Like I'm cynical enough that you need to have a really good reason to go in and do something. And
right. It's like I love the beginning of The Departed when Jack Nicholson's kind of doing his narration of the Knights of Columbus and all that. And then, Rolling Stones is playing, of course, because it's, Scorsese. Got to have like 5 Stones songs in a Scorsese movie. But he leans in from the shadows and he says, we could have been priests, we could have been cops. All I'm saying is when you're on the wrong end of a gun, what's the difference, right?
It's a good impression, by the way. That's really good.
Yeah, so I'm a little rough today, but yeah, but that's the thing that drives me crazy is that when people say that, it's like you said, like Obama. Oh, well, he was the first black president. You can only expect him to. Excuse me, he's the president of the United States.
He got a Nobel Peace Prize for not being George W. Bush. He must be a good guy.
He was okay, and this is what pisses me off about that. That was a participation trophy because he was barely in office 7 months when he got that thing.
Yes, very much so. And this is, I think, one of the big problems with foreign policy is like we have such a binary dichotomous mindset of everything in the world must fall into progressive or conservative.
Right.
So we infer that Democrats and Republicans must have radically different foreign policy then, because everything is rooted in that. And it's like, no, that's not like foreign policy is a whole different ballpark. Foreign policy is not about being conservative or progressive. Foreign policy is about, are you an interventionist or are you a muscular liberalist? Are you, do you believe that the world is more secure when we go out into it and we aid regimes and pick them or destabilize them? Or do you think we should pull back? That's it. And it's been one party rule for my entire life in that regard. Like it's always been the acolytes of Henry Kissinger. It's always been the muscular liberalists. It's always been Wilson-style people that believe that we need to go out and maintain alliances, strike up new ones, and destabilize people we don't like. It's why nobody's ever questioned the fact that we're propping up the Saudi regime, which has zero values shared with us. They're a literal medieval despotism. Yeah. It's a theocracy that kills gay people and makes women wear tents. We have nothing to do with them.
They chop 37 heads off on a Tuesday, but I'm supposed to be happy and peppy and bursting with love with these guys.
There are regional allies, and they help us maintain clout in the Middle East. And I'm like, well, it's pretty expensive to do that.
It is.
I don't think I particularly care. Like I would even sell for just like maintain, like if we have like a defensive alliance with like Israel or NATO or something, I maintain that. That's fine. But like I don't want to go like we're basically like prosecuting a shadow war for Saudi Arabia because we don't have boots on the ground in Yemen. We're giving
we do
them,
a lot though.
We might. I know that we do. We give them like surveillance. We give them drone footage. We give them all sorts of logistical support that allows them to prosecute the war effort. Sure. And I'm like, I don't want to be involved in that. I don't want.
Well, and then conversely, I mean, I always put Israel and Saudis in the same camp because to me the Israelis. Really? Oh yeah, the Israelis are no different. They're just a thuggish theocracy. That's all they are. And if you can't discuss Israel without discussing the Palestinians, and that was a total righteous ass fuck. And I don't care what anybody says. And I'm not an anti-Semite, and I'm half Arab, so I guess I hate half myself. But the other part of it is Zionism is not Judaism, and secular Zionism was warned against in the earlier part of the 20th century. A bunch of these rabbis got together out of Haifa and wrote an ersatz white paper called the Olaya Sharem, and they flat out said, because Zionism was starting to get some traction since Benjamin Disraeli in the 1870s, and these rabbis are like, who live in Haifa, and they're going, hey, a secular Israel is not going to work in this region unless God makes Israel, unless it's divinely, created like the Torah kind of thing. It's not going to work. And I had a scholar on a couple months back, and I asked him, I said, can we both agree that Israel would tell you that they don't have a lot of peace there? So maybe those maybe those old school rabbis had something going on. Maybe they
understood. What I wish had happened, and granted, way too late to put the cork back on this bottle.
Yeah.
But when the Zionist movement started, they were looking at other like obviously Israel was like first choice given the historical lineage, but they were also looking at a part of Manchuria, and they were looking at like North Dakota.
They're also looking at Uganda.
Yeah, Uganda. And I'm like, right now I would give them North Dakota. Like right now, I would be like, we'll give everybody that lives in North Dakota, like everybody gets $100,000 in North Dakota.
But you can't get it. Listen, you can't get a good bagel. Heaton, you can't get a good bagel in North Dakota.
And you can live there. You can stay American. You can live there. We'll work out some deal. But like, I would like, oh my God, that'd be amazing if we transported Israel to North Dakota and we didn't ever have to worry about it again. Like, they're worrying about bears and Canadians. There's like, it's just like that would be great.
Well, the elephant in the room is fascism, and they use that word all the time. I mean, a couple of years back, they had 6 people running for prime minister who were kicking that word around like no problem, and nobody said anything. And there's this hot chick attorney general from Israel. She's a model, super smoking, but except for the Nazi fascist thing, she's really hot. But no, her campaign, one of her campaign ads was this black and white Chanel looking commercial, and it's all in Hebrew. So if you YouTube it, just put Israeli Prime Minister fascist commercials. The first thing that pops up, and she's walking the Chanel-y looking black and white thing. You see this bottle of perfume in the foreground. As it zeroes in on its focus, the name of the perfume is called Fascism. And then,
wait, so is she promoting fascism, or is she saying that her opponent's a fascist?
No, she's saying she's promoting fascism because here's the punchline.
Really?
Oh yeah, here's the punchline. She's dabbing it behind her ears and says, fascism. It smells like democracy. Good times. Yeah.
Wait, so I missed all of this. So are they just owning it? Like, is the term making a comeback?
Oh, comeback. It's been there for a long time. The right wing in Israel runs that country. There's some liberals there. There's some like left wing Israelis, but for the most part, it's all right wing. And they're terrified of the Palestinians and I won't even say rightfully so. You know where Hamas lives. You know where Hezbollah lives. And if it wasn't for fucking Hezbollah, Israel would have annexed Lebanon by now. I mean, Hezbollah got started because of the Sovereign Shatila in 1982. That's just a fact. I mean, they got started because of the massacre of 4,500 Palestinian civilians, right? And so but God forbid you talk about that. And both sides don't like this idea. It's not my idea, but the two-state solution is dead. That's not going to ever happen. It's done. It's a nice excuse for liberal Zionists to feel good about, no, well, I want you to have something too. The only way you're going to do it is to pay Arabs reparations, pay Palestinians reparations, pull the ones out of the diaspora if they want it. But you got 2 million in Gaza, you got 3 million in the West Bank, you got 2 million citizens in Israel who do not have equal rights. They got separate IDs and separate everything else. So screw all that crap. You give them a right of return. You pay them reparations. I mean, shit, the German companies pay Israel reparations for the Holocaust. And the government keeps that, doling out little parcels of the money while the government keeps most of the Mercedes and Porsche money, right? So how about we pay reparations to Palestinians, allow them full right to return, allow them full status, and let them buy, and just start moving forward. Let's just make it work.
So let me unpack that. Let me make sure I understand that.
Yeah.
So if you are living in Palestine, or you're a part of the diaspora, and you could prove, like, we had land in Haifa or wherever, you would get some remuneration, and then everybody would get right of return to become an Israeli citizen.
At this point, yeah, because I mean, as far as I know, I think Israel's an illegal occupation, flat out. I mean, according to international law.
So would it basically like? Would Israel then become, it would become Israel and Palestine, and both groups would be a part of that democratic process?
Yeah, and just leave it alone. I mean, it's just Israel, right? I mean, it's just the nation of Israel still. It is what it is. It's been there 70-odd years now. There's 4 or 5 generations now of people who bought land in good faith, even though it was stolen. So you can't kick those guys out. Then you're doing the same wrong thing. That's not good for anybody. But yeah, exactly. And then you bring them all back, and the ones that want to live there can, the ones that don't. I get it. But you don't do this crap like we're doing in the West Bank or Gaza, where you have an open air prison and routine harassment and bombings and murdering thousands of people.
Do you think that would be a peaceful resolution? Like you think that both like we've now got enfranchised a diaspora former Palestinian families, and we now have like the West Bank and everything. We're just going to kind of like vote for the Knesset, but we're not going to try, and we're not calling for exiling the Jews, or vice versa.
No, not at all. Okay, that's my point. Is you want a peaceful resolution? That's it. There's no 2 states, and Israel would never have allowed that anyway. I mean, I remember about 10, 15 years ago.
I'm sorry, let me rephrase it.
Yeah.
If that happened, you think that the newly enfranchised West Bank and Palestinian territory, that the people in it would be enfranchised, but they would stop short of saying, and we're going to keep pushing to democratically take over the country and kick out the Jews. Like, you think that they would be okay with coexistence?
I think they'd be okay with coexistence, but then you let the chips fall where they may. This is what I love to tell Christians who worry about fighting for God. If God is so great, he doesn't need your help. Same thing. Your democracy's so super duper, your country's so super duper, don't worry about it. Right? Do the right thing and quit being schmucks. Because right now, you bunch of fucking putzes, you're killing people, and it's just not working out. And I remember about 15 years ago, I was stoned. I came up with this really great idea. Let's make the West Bank Palestine, make Jericho the capital, and y'all split Jerusalem and just be done with it. But logically speaking, that wasn't going to ever work. But a two-state solution is dead. If you've seen a recent map of the West Bank, it's just a big pockmark now.
Right, because hasn't the Israeli government kind of systematically been trying to put settlers in such a way?
Not even trying. They own 60% of it right now. They genuinely do. It's like they keep knocking down people's apartments and people's homes that have been living there 200, 300, 400 years, and building new settlements.
See, this is why I think my North Dakota repatriation is a great idea. We would get this really kick-ass, like North Dakota becomes Israel, or like West Israel, what do we call it, East Israel?
Yeah.
And it's a separate country, but like we don't have any foreign policy problems because we're allies with it, and Canada's cool. So we're not getting drug into anything. We're not having to prop them up. We're not giving them $8 billion a year in order to prop up the military. Meanwhile, we get this kick-ass economic powerhouse in a part of the country that, to my knowledge, just has a big mountain with some faces on it. I don't know what else is up there. I guess there's oil, but there's nothing going on. So like that would be great.
But to your point though, and I know we're going to wrap up here in a few minutes, but but to your point though, it's an economic powerhouse that we created. Right. I mean, they sell 60% of the world's drones, and they test them in Gaza. Good times. Right? It's like, and then they have this little side cottage business of training United States cops. So Houston PD goes there, the NYPD goes there, LAPD goes there. They hang out. They watch how they handle, crowd control, meaning, refugees in fucking Gaza. And that Floyd move, the George Floyd move, that Derek Chauvin move, that's an Israeli move, man. You don't teach that in American police academies, right? So it's just like. Like I said, I mean, I was talking to this one Israeli about this, and he was like, "Well, what happens if they had an election and they voted out the Israeli government?" I was like, "Well, then they did, and that's how it goes." It's like whatever. It's like, but the oppression that they're continuing on and the world largely ignores, it's not going to work, man.
I'm totally going to do some back of the envelope math because I don't know how much we give the Israeli government, but I think it'd be cheaper just to pay everybody in North Dakota. Like every single resident of North Dakota, if we gave everybody in there $1 million, and we're like, you can still stay there. It's just that you're going to be in Israel.
We give we give a country of 6 million people $4 billion a year that they don't need from us. They now have industry. I agree with you wholeheartedly on that.
We started giving military aid to Israel back in the 50s. Their GDP was nothing because they were brand new, and it's now grown by 200%. But we're giving them money in kind to increase.
Absolutely. And they get reparations from Germany, and they sell drones, and they sell Uzis. I mean,
they're doing okay. I think we're basically propping up their military and their social safety net.
Oh, and by the way, the best kept secret economically, I mean, David Geffen, Steven Spielberg, not a secret. They chip in a ton of cash over there.
Fine. Good for them.
Good for them. So they don't need our cash. They don't need my taxpayer dollars. Is what they don't need my money to shoot kids in the knee. And say it's for God. And by the way, if you declare yourself a religious state, you are no longer a democracy, you are a theocracy, which is like what Iran is. So neener, because Iran's a theocracy too.
Would you make an intermediate state? Like I'd say, I'm okay with accommodationalist, like Britain, for example. Like I wouldn't enact any of their stuff over here because I believe in the separation of church and state. But they're accommodationalists, so they're not like really trying to push it. It's kind of ceremonial at this point. I feel like Israel's kind of in that camp.
No.
Oh, is it not? All right.
No. It's
just because all of my Israeli or all of my Jewish friends over here are very secular. So I just
as are mine. My American Jewish friends, most of them are just. They're just like whatever, but most of my Israeli friends in LA, I don't know any Israelis here. I know a few Jews here, but in LA I knew a ton. And most of my Israeli friends were very secular, but they still do believe in the existence of an Israeli state for Jews, which is cool if that's what you believe. But if you're going to say that it is the Jewish state and Hebrew is the official language, well, then you're no longer a democracy.
Okay.
And factually, everyone likes to bitch about Iran. I'm like, whatever, but Jews in Iran have more rights than Palestinians in Israel. That's a fact. Huh. They got Jewish delis. They're the number 2 population of Jews outside of Israel in the Middle East. Right.
Okay.
Iran doesn't fuck with them. They're not in refugee camps. They got businesses. They do their thing. Iran is Iran, but they don't openly fuck with Jews and Christians. And then like you mentioned about the Saudis, Iran is way better to people than the Saudis are. That's just a fact.
Yeah, that if I was going to pick between Saudi Arabia and Iran, just in terms of more similarity, based on my cursory understanding, I would say Iran's probably better.
I would live in Tehran in a second versus goddamn Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, well, Saudi Arabia, what they do is they just basically create like Europe bubbles where you like there'll be like a designated compound where you can drink and walk around not wearing a tent, but you have to be in the compound to do that. You can't. You can't like.
My friend's dad was a banker when I was in college, and he would come home every couple of months and tell us these stories about Saudi Arabia. And they had the thing at the place he was staying at, but you couldn't drink out, and they would actually, the first couple weeks he was back there, this is like early 80s. And I'm sure they still do this because, they chop off heads on a Tuesday, but they took him and his Bank of America buddies out to the square to watch public lashings. And the guy said one of the guys was getting lashed because he was caught with a bottle of gin. Somebody had given him a bottle of gin, business token. Hey, and the guy got caught with it, and he got like 30 lashes, because he got caught with a bottle of gin. And that's our ally.
I got to say that makes me feel better about Oklahoma outlawing liquor stores on Sundays. That's always really irritated me, but at least there wasn't any public whipping involved.
At least if you have a bottle of gin on you on a Sunday, no one's going to kill you for it.
Yeah. You don't get arrested for it. Yeah.
Oh boy. Well, hey Heaton, let me let you do your thing. I know you got a lot to do. You're getting ready to move and everything, but let's not make this too infrequent, man. It was great having you.
This was fun. I really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you very much. And to your listeners, if you want to check out my program, I host the Political Orphanage, which is similar, pithy, thoughtful stuff that avoids the red team, blue team trap.
That's the idea, man. That's the idea. It's the only guys winning this election this year are Goldman Sachs, FYI. So that's all there is to it. Well, folks, my guest has been Heaton, and again, thebittertruth.info. You can visit the site. You can support the show there. You can also just listen to everything for free. We're on all platforms: Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, you name it. Wherever you listen to podcasts or catch your media, we're on it. And if this stuff makes you uncomfortable, it's supposed to. Sleep tight.